Good evening and welcome to News Night, live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. In Kumasi, we are on Love 99.5 FM, over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on myjoyonline.com. Tonight on News Night, CLOGSAG gives government its first labour tussle as it vows to go ahead with tomorrow's scheduled strike, insisting on the removal of politically exposed registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry hours after government's justification of his appointment.
In this particular instance, the president has acted in accordance with Ghanaian law, and for that reason, there cannot be a reason why Mr. Adomboche should be removed.
Sit down in the house and relax. Take some coffee and then watch Clock TV.
We'll get to hear from government insisting a follow due process enacted within the confines of the law.
This announcement goes to all CLOGSAG members. This announcement goes to all CLOGSAG members. As of today, CLOGSAG has not received any official correspondence on the reassignment of Mr. Paul Adomboche.
Well, so that's the announcement in that pickup van going around at the ministries. I'll tell you all about it. Plus, Ghana Journalists Association was also hitting back at government, saying it missed the opportunity to condemn the increasing spate of attacks on journalists 50 days into the Mahama administration.
Wondering, you spoke on the DDA matter for about 20 minutes, and I was like, could you not have used just 1 minute to condemn the attacks?
We have details of that. Plus, government also strongly rebutting claims that NPP buffers ensured smooth debt service and calls narrative a complete falsehood. I have details of that. And then the energy minister and former board chairman of the Electricity Company of Ghana, they are adding their voices to growing calls for an investigation and prosecution of alleged syndicated corruption within ECG. We have details of that controversy which centers on the auctioning of goods imported by the power company, with concerns that the processes was riddled with irregularities and possible misconduct.
A container that cost about $500,000 is imported. ECG is unable to clear that container. Some way, somehow, somebody is able to buy that container at auction for 100,000 cedis, bring it into the open market, and resell it to ECG as $300,000.
So when I assumed office, as a businessman, I didn't see the sense in it.
We have details of that exclusive interview or interaction with my colleague Elton Broby on this. And then Lands Minister paints this tempting picture of Ghana's fight against Galamsey, revealing in Parliament that illegal miners have hijacked 9 forest reserves and blocking Forestry Commission access.
Over 9 out of the 44 forest reserves have been completely taken over by these illegal mining tax with impunity. And the Forestry Commission no longer have access to these forest reserves.
And that's coming up in our fight against Galamsey. We have business.
Government to depend on the Ghana Revenue Authority's new digital tax platform system to aid fresh compliance measures in the 2025 budget.
And it's supposed to take it to Parliament, where MPs have united in condemnation of the death of a Kumasi Asante Kotoko fan in Swathre, with a demand for strict enforcement of security protocols at stadia.
That and more in this edition of News Night. You want to join us with your thoughts, your comments is via WhatsApp is 055-1111-997. We're digging now, starting from that government CLOGSAG tussle.
This announcement goes to all CLOGSAG members. This announcement goes to all CLOGSAG members. As of today, CLOGSAG has not received any official correspondence on the reassignment of Mr. Paul Adomboche, who was appointed Registrar of Births and Deaths Registry. Mr. Boche is still at post, performing official duty. The earlier notice of strike action on 20th February 2025 still stands.
So that's sounds from a pickup at one of the ministries in Accra, as civil servants are reminded of a planned strike that's set to begin tomorrow. Well, that's the announcement that's going on. I'm sure if you've been around the ministries area, you would have heard this particular announcement. And Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana, CLOGSAG, announced the strike last week in protest against the appointment of Samuel Adomboche as Registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry, arguing that that he's a politically exposed person. Well, they've demanded his immediate removal, warning that failure to do so will result in this particular action that they insist they're going to embark on, because we've been hearing even from government and the justification, but CLOGSAG insists that they are going to go ahead with the scheduled action. In a statement released on Tuesday, CLOGSAG raised concerns over Mr. Botwe's participation in the births and deaths budget hearing at the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs on Monday. Their view is that it looks like this is a confirmation that he remains in this particular role. Well, the statement signed by Executive Secretary Isaac Bampoado reaffirmed that the strike will proceed as planned unless their demands are met. And this has been getting some form of attention from government. There was a press interaction or a media briefing today by the person in charge of the government spokesperson when it comes to information or communication, I should say. And he mentioned that there's a justification as to why that happened. The due process was followed. Let's listen to Felix Kwachiofusu today, urging CLOGSAG to reconsider their decision to strike.
And in the specific instance of the births and deaths registry, the law governing the operations of that, the law governing the operations of that entity spells out clearly who should make the appointment. It says the president, and the president has acted in accordance with the 1992 Constitution. Now, Section 2.3 says the president shall, in appointing a person as the registrar, have regard to the relevant academic qualification, experience, and knowledge of that person in civil registration. The registrar shall hold office on the terms and conditions specified in the letter of appointment. So, the criteria for that appointment is clearly spelled out in Section 2 of this Act. CLOGSAG has not questioned the competence of the current occupant of the position of registrar. They only say that he is politically exposed. But I have just read the law to you, and you as journalists, I'm sure, have capacity to dig up this law and read it for yourself. There is no way that it is said that the position ought to be occupied by a civil servant. And Mr. Adumbotwe is a highly experienced official who in the past has served as district chief executive under the Mills administration. And he has many years of public service experience. And he has requisite academic qualifications to hold that particular position. So it is the view of government that whilst we respect our partners in organized labor and seek to dialogue on all relevant matters, in this particular instance, the president has acted in accordance with Ghanaian law. And for that reason, there cannot be a reason why Mr. Adumbotwe should be removed, only because he is not a civil servant. There is no provision that says that the position is reserved for civil servants. If it is the view of CLOGSAG.
Well, that's Felix Kwachiofusu at that press conference with that justification. Issues about competence has come up, and the fact that due process when it comes to the law was followed in the appointment of the birth and death registrar. And so they wonder why CLOGSAG would want to embark on this action. But the group, however, maintains that he's not the right person for the job. Dr. Isaac Bampoado, Executive Secretary of CLOGSAG, stated that while they are open to dialogue, their position remains unchanged and they will proceed with the action until their demands are met.
If we get any correspondence indicating that they want to dialogue, why not? We'll put it where well, they say they want to dialogue. So, but we've not had any correspondence. He quoted, we are not saying the president hasn't got any right to appoint. The act that he referred to is the same thing that is in 195 of the Constitution. All is appointments to public services are done by the president. Nobody is disputing that part. What we are saying, there is also a Supreme Court ruling, and we all know that when it comes to the Constitution, it is the Supreme Court that gives interpretation. And the Supreme Court ruling is saying that once your political coloring becomes overt, step away from the services. If he tells us that with Mr. Butcher's political leaning is not overt, there is justice. But we all know that is an NDC activity. And the Supreme Court is saying that the moment your political coloring becomes overt, stay away from the services. Some of our members have been dismissed. You see the Supreme Court ruling. So this is our position. Well, as it stands, if we get an invitation, of course, there's full dialogue. And tell that we are not saying this thing. But if this is what the Supreme Court is saying, What we ask our constituents to do is to sit down in their house and relax, take some coffee, and then watch Clock TV.
And that's Dr. Isaac Bampuadu there interacting a while ago with my colleague Michael Ashali there in his initial remarks after that government explanation that was given and the concerns that government had raised in terms of this particular action that you're hoping to embark on tomorrow because of the registrar of the births and death registry, and they insist that he's a politically exposed person and that he ought not be there. But government is raising the issues about competence and due process and the law being followed. We're still working the lines to see if we can bring back Dr. Isaac Bampuadu on this particular issue. What has changed between the time that the government spoke and the time that he also interacted with us? Is the action still on tomorrow? You've been hearing him talk about the fact that their workers should stay at home tomorrow and, do other things other than go to the office. And there's a van also, we're told, that is going round. The ministry is also announcing to all CLOGSAG members to stay away from work because of the appointment of the registrar of the births and deaths. Well, we've been hearing from Labour consultant Austin Game, and he says the strike is not the best course of action and is urging the group to reconsider the approach in favour of dialogue.
Yes, workers have a right to go on strike, but it must be based on something. If it's just a question of the president appointing somebody into office, the authorized person by Article 195 of the Constitution is the president, who is entitled to appoint people into various offices. Under the Labour Law, Section 8A of the Labour Act 651, as an employer representing the state, they are the only authorized bodies to appoint people to various offices. The approach is what should be a source of problem for even themselves. That the way to go about this is not about going on strike. It's about engagement. It's about dialogue. So I don't know who is advising that they should go on strike to have their matter resolved. So they have to reconsider the concerns that they have.
Well, so that's a Labour consultant, Austin Game there, and that call to CLOGSAG. Government also has a call on them to actually put on hold the action for tomorrow, but CLOGSAG insists until the removal of the births and deaths register. That action will continue because he's politically exposed, and we'll see how that goes. I'm sure before we end Newsnight, we'll get some reaction to this particular story for you on whether indeed this strike is going to go on as scheduled tomorrow, or there's been an intervention or dialogue has been able to win when it comes to this particular situation. But at that press conference today, the issue about Ghana Journalists Association also came up. I told you yesterday about concerns that the Ghana Journalist GJA president raised at a press conference, asking the president to stick to his promise of protecting journalists who've come under attack. But there was a response to the GJA, and the GJA is fighting off these claims and raising concerns about the increasing spate of attacks on journalists, and it says it is misleading and unfair. The GJA president Albert Jumfo appealed to President John Mahama, like I said, to take a personal interest in cases of attacks on journalists in the country. But addressing these concerns today, Minister in charge of Government Communication, Felix Kwachiofosu, strongly rejected allegations that government is involved in a coordinated effort to attack journalists.
That said, I must also express dismay about the way that narrative was woven. It created a certain misleading impression about government and about President Mahama, which needs to be straightened. All of you are aware that President Mahama is an easygoing, down-to-earth, affable individual who relates very well with all manner of people. He is a member of the Ghana Journalists Association in good standing. So essentially, he is one of you. He is a member of the Inky fraternity. And therefore, he will be the last person to supervise a dispensation where journalists are attacked. But the way that the press conference was addressed and the way that the matters were couched created the impression that some journalists had perhaps said or written something that government was unhappy about, and therefore government was carrying out reprisals against them. But that is completely incorrect. It is not true, and nothing of the sort has happened. When I inquired from the Ghana General Association president, he mentioned instances where at a recent Council of State elections, there was some scuffle and some journalists were roughed up. He also spoke about Erastus Asaidonko, who is reported to have been set upon by some illegal miners when he went there to cover their activities. But these are incidents involving persons who are acting unlawfully. For instance, illegal miners in the first place are breaking the law. So if in an attempt to report the activities, some of them attack a journalist, I'm not sure that you can lay the blame at the doorstep of President Mama or the government. It is an act of criminality.
That's Felix Kwachefusu there. Well, thankfully, we've been hearing from the GJA on this. The Secretary General of GJA, Kofi Yeboah, that's the General Secretary, I should say, says the minister missed a good opportunity to show government's commitment to ensuring the safety of journalists.
We do not know of any laid down approach or channel to follow. And the way we have been operating, when we have concerns, and we may do a press conference, we may issue a press statement, we may engage the stakeholders involved. So there are so many approaches. On this occasion, we had decided to hold a press conference to address our issues. I don't think there are any right or wrong issues here. Just the same way, the Honorable Minister also uses the press conference approach to address the CLOGSAG issue, the GDA issue, and some other issues. Our interest is that we are finding solutions to the concerns we have. And listening to the Honorable Minister, I think he totally missed the point. So he may have been seized by some other report, but if he was minded to go to the original statement we issued, there was nowhere we had drawn the government into it or suggested that the government was behind the attack. We had stated fact that within 50 days of this administration, there have been 7 attacks. That is a statement of fact. The Honorable Minister did not contest that fact, or he did not give alternatives to the fact we had put across. And if you were to disaggregate that, it's only 1 attack every week, and that is quite high. And that is where our concern is coming from. And when I was listening to Ronald, I was wondering, you spoke on the DDA matter for about 20 minutes, and I was like, could you not have used just 1 minute to condemn the attack and call on people, stakeholders, not to go on that tangent?
That's the position of the General Secretary of the Ghana Journalists Association, Kofi Yeboah there. An immediate reaction to the government Minister in charge of government communication, Felix Kwachefusu. So I bet I will get this designation right the next time I come on air on this matter. But well, he's been addressing the issues about the economy also today. And of course, he's dismissed claims by the previous NPP administration that they established debt buffers to facilitate the 4th DDEP coupon payment. Well, since that announcement or that statement that they actually are paying these coupons, there have been a lot of reactions to this. We've been hearing from the former finance minister, Mohamed Amin Adam, at least in his Facebook post. He had asserted that the Akufo-Addo government had built reserves in the debt service reserve accounts to support upcoming debt obligations, including the recently honored 4th coupon payment. But the minister, Felix Kwachefusu, in that statement today, labelled the claim as false.
We have had some rebuttals from the MPP, whose officials have claimed that we have been able to do that as a government only because they left some buffers, and that it is not because of any specific intervention from President Mahama. I wish to place on record that this narrative is untrue. For officials of the former government to be able to say that these payments and honoring of these obligations have been the outcome of work that they did, they need to point specifically where those buffers were located. Because in order to be able to pay the money, you need to find it and lodge it somewhere. That is what you call a buffer, pending payment at a given date. Now,
Well, Kofi, our lead data research analyst, joins me in studio on this. He's been working the line to reach the former finance minister, Mohamed Amin Adam, on this. Immediately, he's unable to react to this. But Kofi, you've been doing some digging, and we need some education in this regard. First, then, let's understand what this debt service reserve account or sinking fund is actually about.
Well, so the debt service reserve account is an account that is supposed to be set up by this is being set up by the government of Ghana for debt servicing obligations. And we understand that this account is in twofold. So you have the dollar component and the CD component. So the dollar component definitely for settling debt at the external level, and when you come to the CD account for DDEP, payments. And according to Felix, this is the update he gave today. He says that if you look at the dollar account as of October 22nd October 2024, the balance in that account was $64,387. $64,387. And he says that, this was the account, but on the 31st of January 2025, a transfer of 915,182 closely, we can say that $96.9 million was actually transferred into the account on the 31st of January 2025. That was when President Mahama had resumed office. Now, the bone of contention here is a CD account, because this is what's supposed to be used for the settlement of the DDP. Now, if you go into the CD account, which the former finance minister claimed that they had left enough buffers in there, according to Felix, the balance when they took over as of 2nd January was 155.4 million Ghana cedis. Now, they say that they restocked that balance, making it more than 15 billion, and they're not paying 6 billion, which means that it will leave a balance of now 9.3 billion Ghana cedis in there as a buffer. But we've been doing some checks. From the sinking fund. What we understanding, based on the data we have from the finance ministry, is that this is not a fund that has been left dried. Okay. So there's actually money in the sinking fund.
Not sinking. The sinking fund is not
it's not sinking.
Okay.
So what we are learning is that in 2024, this is data from the finance ministry, the finance ministry's own fiscal data that they have actually published. So if you go to their website, you will see that in 2024, the target was that by the end of the year, they should get some 241 million Ghana cedis in the sinking fund. But what we are learning is that as of the second quarter, July 2024, they had gone above this target and raised a total of, I think it was a total of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. So the target was 241 million, but they had put 1.1 billion cedis in the sinking fund. So what we are learning is that this is not an account that has been left dry, but the data we are getting is that as of the first half of last year, you had a significant component or significant amount of 1.1 billion sitting in that account. And we also understand that in August, they went ahead to make a payment of 6 billion Ghana cedis to DDEP, or as DDEP coupons. And what we are learning is that this debt servicing account doesn't just rely on sinking fund. They pick from different places, put together for the debt servicing. So, we need more clarification from both the former finance minister and the current, government in terms of how this account is being treated and what is currently in that account at the moment, MFR. Okay,
well, all these figures, I'm a bit dazed at this point. I was hoping we could go for a quick break, but really, let's turn our attention to ECG at this point, because Kofi is giving me a lot of figures. None of it is coming into my pocket or into my account, but we'll manage. The Energy Minister, John Jinapor, and the former board chairman of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Alexander Afenyomarking, have joined calls for a thorough investigation and prosecution of individuals behind what they describe as syndicated corruption at the power company, that's ECG, over the auction of goods imported by the company. In one instance, essential equipment valued at $500,000 was auctioned for 100,000 cedis, or should I say $6,000 equivalent, and later resold to ECG for $300,000. Let me say that again. The equipment was valued at $500,000. was auctioned for 100,000 cedis or $6,000, and then later it was resold back to ECG for $300,000. Well, the energy minister considers this as a fraud and must be punished.
You go to their warehouse, a lot of the equipment are at the mercy of the weather. I just checked from the port, and the security report I'm getting is that a container that cost about $500,000 is imported. ECG is unable to clear that container. Some way, somehow, somebody is able to buy that container at auction for 100,000 cedis, bring it into the open market, and resell it to ECG as $300,000. It will stop. And I mean, it will stop. Whatever it takes to stop that, no matter how unpopular that might be, we have to.
So that's the energy minister, John Jinapo, there on this. Well, the minority leader, Alexander Penyomaki, who served as board chairman of ECG between 2023 and 2024, says he raised concerns about the practice, but were largely ignored. He spoke to my colleague Elton Brobe on The Pulse.
When I became the chair, I was told of that story. And in fact, I had a problem with ECG having to import for and still pay duty. So one of the things I did as a board chair was to get the board to issue a new directive to the effect that any supplier who imported for ECG had to clear and deliver to our warehouse. That was the first intervention I made. So I stopped that thing upon assumption of office as chair.
So are you surprised that?
No, I'm not surprised because I know we had a lot of challenges. We had a lot of containers at the port. So what Jinapo said was right. Indeed, there were a lot of containers at the port that we had not paid for their
clearance,
their duty. So when I assumed office, as a businessman, I didn't see the sense in it. You get a contract, you only drop the bill of lading and start pursuing your money, and then sometimes you are even paying the supplier and the goods have not been cleared. And it's true, people take advantage of the system where they go, the customs guys will auction, and when they auction, they go and buy it, and then somebody may have an order, and then they sell the same thing back to ECG. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
It's one of
somebody must be held responsible.
It's one of the things that we have to look at. So I'm happy the minister is taking a step. When I was in office as board chair, I got the board to take a decision on that, and there was a new policy. And if you go there, you can find for yourself that there should be no contract that will terminate at the port. The person should supply the goods to our warehouse.
That's the minority leader, Alexander Fenyomaki there. He was a former board chair of the Electricity Company of Ghana. You heard the energy minister also raise concerns, and it does appear that there's a suspicion of some syndicate there engaging in these corrupt practices. Well, there have been talks about privatizing ECG, and you've heard the position of the Public Utilities Workers Union, PU, on this. They have key concerns. They're strongly opposed to government's plan to introduce private sector participation in the Electricity Company of Ghana, arguing that privatization will not address the company's challenges. Well, thankfully, the General Secretary for PU, Timothy Nyame, joins us on the line. Mr. Nyame, we are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. But hearing all the things that we are hearing that's happening, especially at ECG, what really is your justification for being against private participation?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your listening. So our message is simple. Electricity Company of Ghana is a public entity which is to provide a specific service. So it's not necessarily a profit-making entity. So measures that can be put in place to ensure that it does or it conducts its business in that manner is what we are all calling for. So the issues that the minister is raising are not things that the leadership of the union are not aware of.
You are aware of them?
You are aware of them.
And what exactly has been your intervention? I'm curious.
Yes, we have had engagement with management over these issues. I could hear Honorable Makin talking about the procurement of goods, and then the directive that he gave when it comes to procurement of goods going forward. There were issues that we raised as a suggestion to management that goods procured should be delivered to the doorstep of the customer and not to remain at the port, so that we should complete the transaction when items are delivered to the warehouse of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Because we came to realize that these containers were kept at the port, also incurring demurrage, which is another cost to the company. So there are other issues that have been enumerated in our document. If you study our document, we have highlighted issues that the government should handle to make sure that the company comes back on track, that it will serve the public interest when those issues are resolved.
Well, but the key distinction that at least this government gives is that they are looking for private sector participation and not necessarily just privatizing ECG. For you, you consider both the same? There are no difference, you say?
Yes, as we said in our document, we have not seen any dichotomy between private sector participation and privatization over the years. And down the memory lane, let's see private sector participation in a utility company like Ghana Water Company. What was the result? Privatization also in the telcos. What was the result? So we have seen them and made them as one and the same. So they are only having the disguised name, one private sector participation or privatization. That's why we are calling on the government that they should put in measures and internal control mechanisms in place, and also free management hand in their mode of operation. So you appoint a managing director and give him a KPI to operate, the fault of which he must be sanctioned. So that you cascade down. Also, issues, certain things that are needed as agents, for instance, meters, procurement of meters that are needed to measure the quantity, the power that is consumed by customers should be easily provided. So these are some of the things that we are asking.
Okay,
so
and you are scheduled to meet the minister on this document that you've been making reference to. What exactly has been the reception to this document, and has government rescinded that decision, or it remains the same? What exactly has been the reception?
So to be the reception was very, very cordial. Don't forget, the minister set up a committee, and we met the leadership of the committee. The chairman was present, so we highlighted the issues, and we brought to them the attention and said that the reason why there should be no need for privatization or private sector participation, but they should look at issues that we have listed. So if you go to the conclusion,
so what assurance did they give? What assurance did they give you?
Oh, in fact, there's more room for further engagement. This was the assurance they gave, that in fact they have informed, they have been consulted, the committee has been consulted that to consult all broad stakeholders, and they'll come back to rest or to dialogue on issues going forward.
Okay, we are grateful. That's Timothy Nyame, is the General Secretary for the Public Utilities Workers Union there. And it's time. Let's bring in George. Of course, when we are talking about ECG, we are getting into the realms of business. And George, your face ready with the latest from that world. George?
Well, MFA coming up, Bank of Ghana begins audit of remittance activities for the fourth quarter of last year as it charges all market players to fully comply with the process and government to depend on Ghana Revenue Authority's new digital tax platform to aid fresh compliance measures set to be announced in the 2025 budget. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials, Synthesis tanks and Pepsodent, Herbal and Charcoal. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the Bank of Ghana has announced that it has started auditing remittance activities from the 1st of October last year to December 2024. Now, this was contained in an official notice released by the Central Bank today. According to the Bank of Ghana, the objective of this audit is to assess the remittance process and also provide recommendations to strengthen the existing regulatory framework. In addition, the audit will evaluate evaluate compliance with all the applicable regulations, including the Foreign Exchange Act of 2006. The Bank of Ghana added that all market participants are reminded that they are obliged to comply fully with this exercise by the Bank of Ghana. To other stories now, government has revealed that it will depend on the new digital tax platform by the Ghana Revenue Authority to aid compliance measures set to be introduced in the 2025 budget. There is more in this report.
The Integrated Tax Application and Preparation System is a new digital tax platform rolled out by the Ghana Revenue Authority to help simplify the tax administration process in the country. The authority has maintained that this new platform simplifies income tax, value-added tax, and customers' costs for tax payment. The Ghana Revenue Authority also believes that this new system will allow for real-time processing, automated tax computation, and document pre-filing. Government sources have told Joy Business that this system will support its plans to be heavy on compliance in the coming month to make up the revenue loss when it goes ahead to remove the e-levy, betting tax, COVID-19 levy, and other taxes that it announced in its manifesto. We also understand that based on the work that the Ghana Revenue Authority is doing, concerns about challenges with collections should also be addressed even before the end of this year. The Ghana Revenue Authority has also adopted artificial intelligence in their tax administration structures. This has also helped them in establishing a data analytics center that will do predictive tax revenue forecasting as well as tax evasion. The authority maintains that some of these measures has also resulted in 15% increase in VAT collections. Government sees all these measures as an indication to support compliance and also deal with low revenue mobilization.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now let's still stay on tax issues because businesses have welcomed moves by government to be heavy on tax compliance to make up for the revenue shortfalls in the coming months. Now it follows revelations that government will press ahead by removing some taxes like the COVID-19 in the 2025 budget. Let's hear from President of the Ghana Union of Trade Association, Joseph Obeng, who says this move needs to be supported.
So the most important thing is what government is going to do. We are looking at the significance of this. It's very important that we also make this taxes very affordable. When we say that we are reducing, it means that we are reducing and making it simplified and affordable so that compliance does not become a difficulty for us at all.
The Greater Accra Regional President of the Association of Ghana Industries, Chona Mapelu, believes that this is actually long overdue.
If you follow the campaign that had just ended before the elections, you realize that all the political parties were very heavy in promising about tax compliance. In fact, to the extent that all the political parties campaigned heavily on cancelling of taxation, e-levying and all of that, was only natural to expect that they would like to expand compliance. For us in industry, we're very excited about that, and we would continue to support government to do that. But it's important to note that the issue of compliance has always been on the table. AGI have had concerns to complain about how compliance is being implemented and achieved. So, for example, the tax authorities continue to focus on the very few companies that will always pay the tax.
Chona Mapelu is the Greater Accra Regional President of the Association of Ghana Industries. The Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies Ghana says it will be petitioning government over concerns of unfair pricing of petroleum products. According to the Chamber, this has been a setback for the industry as many investors are forced to compete unfairly on other markets. Chief Executive of the Chamber, Dr. Rivisnopon, discloses to Joy Business at the closing session of the Downstream Dialogue program in Accra today.
And at the end of the day, we want sanity in the industry. We want to have a fair pricing regime where we have an organic industry where the industry players will determine what price. Because at the end of the day, we are deregulated. Why do I need to bypass Konongo from Tema to Kumasi and another BRV go to Kumasi and bring the same product to Konongo? I mean, that's a double counting. And I'm asking this question. If today, Boss refuses to take fuel from Tema to Kumasi, and my members, the oil marketing companies, do so from Tema to Kumasi and to the north, what happens to the primary distribution margin that is charged at the depot, regardless of Boss not doing its job? We still charge regardless. So I believe it's high time we review holistically the zonalization.
Dr. Revesinopon is the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And if you're holding the shares of MTN Ghana, each share was up by 9 pesos to close at 2 Ghana cedis 90 pesos. That of Goa was also up by a peso to close at 1 cedi 60 pesos. Total was actually up by 21 pesos to close at 13 Ghana cedis 62 pesos. About 3 stocks going up on the market today. And if you track your investment on the market, is up by more than 12% if you had invested from the beginning of this year. Some interesting developments there for those who might be interested on the Ghana Stock Exchange when it comes to investment. And it's good time to do spots.
Yeah, George. Well, the members of parliament have been united in their condemnation of violent scenes recorded at the Inswantre during a march between Kumasi, Asante Kotoko, and Inswantreman. The violence did lead to the death of one fan, which has led to the suspension of the local league. Delivering a statement on the floor of parliament, MP for Brekum West, Dixon Dia, called for the enhancement of security at stadiums and strict enforcement of disciplinary actions.
I urge Ghana Football Association and the National Sports Authority to put in place stringent measures and security and safety measures to prevent such occurrences in future. These include enhanced security at stadiums, strict enforcement of disciplinary actions against violent conduct, and also intensified public education on sportsmanship. Mr. Speaker, in our beautiful game of football, there are only 3 results. Either you win, you lose, or you draw.
Well, for his part, Member of Parliament for Bolga Central, Isaac Adongo, delivered a scathing criticism of the Ghana Football Association and its management of football in the country.
Mr. Speaker, I was very sad to hear my colleague mention that they were struggling to get very simple first aid. You don't have ambulances. You have no business playing football in such a field. That is a death trap. But we go there and nothing happens, so we think that is a football field. No. What was the police situation at the football field? Where were the police? What was the requirement of security that was supposed to be upheld in the stadium? In this particular instance, the information we have is that this young man had been threatened prior to the match, and that the security agencies should have known that what happened to the young man could happen. Parks, they are just like we're doing in our area, where you just call neighbors across the road and you are playing football. That is what is happening. And we cannot be doing that for people to die needlessly.
Member of Parliament for Bolga Central, Isaac Andogun there. Well, coming up tonight is a big Champions League game between Real Madrid and Manchester City. I almost said Manchester United. What are they doing there in the Europa League? It's a big one, and of course, Real Madrid are leading that tie by 3-2. Man City will need to win at least by some 2-goal margin to be able to stand a chance of making it to the round of 16. But Pep Guardiola says in Steam, all they need to do is to be perfect and courageous.
Yeah, you have to make an almost perfect game. Obviously, the result is not good. Always we came with a more or less good result, but the result is not the perfect situation. We have to attack, we have to score goals. This is the idea. Still, we have a lot to play to qualify for the Champions League next season. Of course, Europe right now, still we are there. FA Cup, the World Cup, and the end of the season we take the decision.
Well, not sure where you stand. Not sure if you're a fan of Pep.
Oh,
or
Pep
where do you stand?
all the way. Pep
oh, really? You're rooting
today,
for them to win. Madrid,
we just have to be perfect.
Soon.
Let's see. I'll meet you tomorrow.
We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. Thank you very much. And that's Musbah with the latest from the world of sports. I have some of your messages that I'll go through. Then I can take you to Parliament and we kick off our fight against illegal mining. And Senna says the NDC government must work hard to prosecute corrupt NPP officials. Well, he says involved in ECG scandal. And Nane Kuyamwa Boating Ablikuma Central says it is very unfortunate for the court to convict Honorable NST Yaukumi for contempt. I strongly believe he will be cleared of the charge and sets him free. Well, members of parliament have been reacting to that as well. And we have Amos from Ashaiman says that please, the Minister for Government Communications only sought to clarify the narrative communicated by the GJA president, whose position only sought to create an impression that the perpetrators of those attacks are in a way connected to the government of the day. Yao Achimota says hypocrisy and double standard will kill us all in this country. Why he says so, he did not say. Sami Nkumasi says it is always better for Henry Nanabuachi not to speak on issues when he has no in-depth knowledge on whatever it's at stake. He has rather muddied the waters with his ranting without giving any impeccable figures to debunk that there was no ghost names on the NSSP list. And that's a story that we tackled extensively on Top Story. Now, Musa Batwa in Aswasi says the NSS corruption scandal is alarming, with millions lost through ghost names, even involving Kenyan nationals. He goes on and adds the hashtag Newsnight. You can also do same. Now, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources Emmanuel Amakofibwa has painted a very disturbing picture of Ghana's fight against Galamsey, revealing in Parliament that illegal miners have hijacked 9, not 1, not 2, not 3, 9 forest reserves, with the Forestry Commission blocked from accessing it. Well, according to the minister, Galamsey continued to wreak severe havoc on Ghana's lands, but insisted the new government will not relent in the fight against illegal mining.
Ghana is currently faced with an unprecedented threat to our forest resources and water bodies due largely to illegal small-scale mining activities. This situation has assumed crisis proportions with dire national security and public health consequences that require immediate attention. Honourable Speaker, it will interest you to note that out of the 288 forest reserves that I have mentioned, a whopping 44 of these forest reserves are under serious attack by...
Well, my colleague, Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kwekwa Sante, sat through proceedings and heard the minister paint that gloomy picture, I should say. And he joins us on the line with more on this. So, Kweku, the minister also explains the current situation with water bodies. It's not just forest reserves, which have received a fair share of destruction. Tell us more.
Well, MFI, in fact, you would, from the various reporting that we've done with the Rascals, Asari Donko, and our other colleagues on Galamsey, we know that one of the hardest hit environmental issues having to do with Galamsey is water. The minister talks about the poison that have now been introduced into Ghana's water bodies and explains that in Parliament.
Speaker, the impact of illegal mining on our water bodies, which is the second phase, is critical and equally alarming. Among the 3 water basin systems in Ghana, which is the Volta, Southwestern, and the Coastal Western Basin systems, the Southwestern Basin system is most impacted. The rivers that form the Southwestern basins are the Ankobra, the Pra, which is made out of Fame, Brim, and Odan, and the Tano and Bia. According to the Ghana Water Company, the normal turbidity levels for water under treatment should not exceed 500 NTU.
But currently, what we have is more than that NTU that we're supposed to have. But Kweku, there were a lot of contributions on the floor when it comes to this. But finally, though, we know someone is asking for the installation of CCTV cameras alongside all Ghana's river bodies. Really? Hello, Kweku. Okay, that's a peer that I can hear my colleague. But listen to that suggestion in Parliament.
I believe that henceforth, when they get the recommendation, you should insist that that should be
the committee or the body issuing these licenses, and then Accra can then top it up. Because if we don't do that, there's not going to be any community ownership, and even the fight itself also has to be owned by the community and the district. Otherwise, we are going to have a big challenge in fighting it, because that has been our method of fighting everything from Accra. In fact, by the time soldiers even move into the district, I mean, the Galamseyers, they have been reformed and they ran away. In fact, when we were fighting it in those days, when we go in the morning, they are not there. In the afternoon, they are not there. When you go back the next morning, you realize that they are come to do operations in the night. And this is very difficult for our agencies to be able to stop them. Going forward, he has also made mention of the river gas. And I believe that is a good thing. In fact, we trained a lot of river gas. We only deployed them for a few periods because of morality issues. Because along the lines, what we realized was that those fighting Galamsey, from the police to the army to immigration, along the line, it became a different story altogether. So I believe that now that we have digitalization, I'm concluding, Mr. Speaker. Now that we have digitalization, it is important if we can do and implement and invest in solar CCTV cameras along the rivers.
Okay, so that's Komna Mensah Ochiri the MP for Takrady, and that's the suggestion when it comes to the fight against Galamsey after the minister gave painted a picture of that situation when it comes to our fight against illegal mining. But it brings me to our climate focus for today, and the Forestry Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, in partnership with the Forestry Commission, we know has organized a one-day workshop for stakeholders in the Bono region on sustainable small-scale woodlot management for bioenergy and rural livelihood improvement. Well, my colleague Anas Sabit was at that workshop. He brings us climate focus.
Wood fuel, primarily charcoal and firewood, has over the years been the main source of energy for cooking for 2/3 of households in sub-Saharan Africa and is a critical element in maintaining food security. With millions of households depending on wood fuel production to make a living, a heavy reliance on it makes environment and health concerns, and with many governments focusing on bans and restrictions of the commodity, there is a need for policy makers as well as researchers to undertake demand-driven research. As a result, the Forestry Research Institute of Ghana under the CSIR is implementing a project to enhance sustainable woodlot management for bioenergy production in Ghana. Professor Emmanuel Punifrimpon is a professor of forest health and a deputy director at the institute.
It's clear that the project is going to go a long way to support sustainability of the charcoal business, sustainability of woodlot establishment, for us to achieve the objective for which the funds has been given to us.
Professor Opuni Frimpong further emphasized that the project, aside its social and economic benefits, will go a long way in helping the country's agenda of climate change mitigation, as it encourages people to plant trees for charcoal production instead of depleting the forest for that same purpose.
If people accept this principle of rather planting trees to burn charcoal instead of going to the forest reserves and the already forest cover to deplete it more, then it's going to help Ghana's agenda of contributing to climate change mitigation and reducing stress that climate change is putting on the total environment.
Some of the participants underscored the relevance of the engagement and called for more engagements to help minimize the indiscriminate felling of trees for charcoal production.
Again, from this project, we need to be conscious of planting trees and protecting them.
It should be a collaboration project, like between government and I know the government alone cannot take it up. So NGOs should help, whilst the government also holds another part.
Anas Sabit, Joy News.
Climate Focus is brought to you by Joy News in partnership with Youth Bridge Foundation, Bridging Gaps for Positive Youth Development, and the Climate Development Knowledge Network.
And that's how we end today's edition of Newsnight. And Akofa is in the studios. It's time for Strong and Sassy.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
So we're talking
tonight?
about how to know if he or she is the one.
Hey,
I know it's
you have a thermometer. You have something that you
so,
want to gauge.
Well, so the thing is, we know that there's no formula and all of that, but we want our guests that are joining in to share their opinions and thoughts on that, and also
people go all out.
You know, yeah. So we'll get some pointers to share with our listeners.
I have somebody I want to check on, so I'll be listening for.
Please do. Whether
he's the one or
not. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be doing same myself. So yeah. So
let's do it together. You want to stay with Akofa and the team? They're coming up next with Strong and Sassy.